This is Dr. Benavidez, and I will be your professor for EDSC 5310, the online course this semester. I wanted to make sure we had a little bit of face-to-face, and you will find that I'll post videos throughout this semester to make sure that you're getting all of the information that you need in order to be successful in the course. The online design is a little different from what I'm used to. I'm used to more of the face-to-face, and so I wanted to make sure I built some of that into this. And so I know this is a kind of a one-way dialogue, but at least you're going to get some good information to pair with the readings and activities that I have assigned for you this year. I will be going through the lecture 1 right now and the syllabus. So if you want to kind of open up those documents real quick, we can kind of go through them together. Again, this is all completely online, and so you're free to do this as you wish. But I want to make sure that we're clear about the syllabus, the expectations, and sometimes that can be lost in translation, or you may misread information. So I want to make sure that all of that is clear before you get started with the course. While you're gathering those documents, if you don't already have them open, I just want to let you know that every Monday I will be posting the lecture for the week. I will renew the journal entries and the discussion boards that will happen always on Mondays. And in the syllabus, you'll see where I have notated when all of those things are due and when they will happen. But just so you can kind of get it in your head that every Monday you need to check to see what's the new lecture for the week, what are the new activities, and check for any videos. I don't know if I'm going to use videos every single week. I haven't quite decided. Some chapters you really can kind of read and learn on your own, and I can provide supplemental materials, but some chapters I'm definitely going to want to do something more intensive so that you completely understand that topic or that domain, because my goal also is to prepare you for the Texas exam, and I don't want you to lose any opportunity to do the best you can on that exam. All right, so let's get started. I'm looking, and so I'm going to kind of look off because I'm looking at the computer over here as well, but I'm looking at the actual lecture. It'll say EDSC 5310 Fall 2018 Lesson 1, August 20th, 2018 online. The reason I have online is because I'm actually teaching multiple courses, so I have to designate the different syllabus by online or in class or in Plano or in Colleyville. So I'm a little bit of all over the place this semester. All right, so we're going to get into the second slide, and again, that's just the agenda. This is the introduction. I wanted to make sure you knew who I was. I'm going to get to know a little bit about you through your work this first week. We're going to review the course syllabus and expectations. We're going to look at issues impacting primary and secondary counselors. That's an article that I've embedded in course material, and then take a brief look at Chapter 1. This presentation today does not take the place of you reading Chapter 1. What I do with the lectures, if I'm going to do a video, is I do a highlights. So I kind of will give you a generic overview of the book, but I want to make sure that you're getting all of the information, so you do need to read the chapters as well. I will pull things from the chapters that I don't talk about in the lectures for your tests and exams, and we'll talk about more about midterms when the time comes, but I just want to make sure that that's really clear. This does not take the place of actual reading the materials. So a little bit about me. My name is Dr. Sandra Benavidez Perez. That's a mouthful, and so most people just call me Dr. B. You're more than welcome to refer to me in that way. I am a graduate of DBU. Both my master's and doctorate were completed here, so it's really exciting for me to come back and be on the side of the podium and grow and support school counselors. I've been in education now 14 years. I started my career as a bilingual teacher. I did bilingual, special ed, and GT. Then I transitioned to an elementary school counselor for a few years, then high school counselor for several years, then lead counselor several years as well, and then, I'm sorry, not several, 1 year, and then I transitioned to the role that I'm currently in 2 years ago, which is I work for Region 10, and I provide counseling related services support for 145 school districts. So I stay extremely busy. I have the privilege of working with 2,000 plus counselors every single day, on top of superintendents and assistant superintendents and other central office staff. And so I have a passion for counselors and really believe in what they do. And so I love being able to share what's happening in the real world with my students and vice versa. So I will pull a lot of material from the work that I actually do with counselors around the district every day. I've worked in a variety of schools. I spent most of my time, though, in Irving ISD, which is a Title I school. I also served as a language consultant. I worked for migrant programs, so I was the coordinator for the district, and have always really been with high ELL or lab populations and high free and reduced and at-risk students. And so really that's my forte. I have done some work now with the region with very high income districts, and so I'm finding that the challenges that those districts experience are a little different, but still equally as challenging as those who work with poor students. And so I have a really good, well-rounded look at children from urban areas, rural areas, suburban areas, inner city, really just great insight on all of that. So if you ever have any questions that you want to know, or you're considering changing districts, please reach out to me. I'm not just your professor for this one course. I am your professor until you don't need me anymore. And I have several students that still have completed the program and are calling me for support or questions. And so I'm going to offer that and extend that to you as well. I'm here for you. I'm here to serve you. And it would give me great joy to walk alongside you in this journey. So next up is our syllabus review. And so I'm going to pull that up real quick. And just a few things on the syllabus. I want to make sure that you use the email that I have in my syllabus. It's going to be my Yahoo account, or you can even use my Work Region 10 account. Please do not email me on Blackboard. I already have to manage multiple emails for my regular job and other classes, and so the Blackboard one just seems to be one that I can't keep up with. So I'm just kind of being candid and honest, and hope that you will honor and respect that. If you want a fast response, those two emails are going to be the fastest. I may not check the Blackboard one except maybe once a week. So if you're wanting a response, those are the emails I'd like you to use. Additionally, I have no problem with you calling or texting me. I actually prefer text over phone calls because usually I'm traveling most days, and I'm either in the airport or in a district giving PD, doing a variety of things where I just cannot reach my phone. But texting is amazing, and I love it, and I prefer it. So feel free to text me anytime, day or night. I may not respond if you text me at 3 in the morning, but I definitely will respond as soon as I wake up or catch a minute. So just keep that in mind. You're never going to bother me. If anything, I'd much rather have you text me and get an answer to your question than stay stuck in a rut. So please use that number. It is for you, however you need to use it. Some of the things I'm not going to cover because you can read, the course description, the learner-centered outcomes and objectives. The text, you should have School Counseling for the 21st Century. This is the 6th edition, so make sure you've got the right edition. The ISBN is there in case you're still looking for your textbook. There's a couple of downloads there that we will talk about, and I'm not going to quite ask you to download them yet. If you want to, you can be prepared, but when that time comes, you will know, so there's no need to necessarily download and print at this moment. The course outline is that we will go through the chapters. There's 14 chapters, so we will go through them one by one. This is actually a 16-week course, which I'm not used to teaching. I'm used to doing kind of 8 weeks and 10 weeks, and so I actually get to spend a lot more time with you, which is nice, so we can slow it down and really understand each chapter instead of kind of running through them like I usually have to in the expedited courses. I want to take note here that late assignments are not accepted. We are at the graduate level. I expect you to be professional and get your stuff in on time. If there are things that come up, please text me, call me, email me. We can talk them through. I just don't want to set the tone that it's okay to submit late work. You're busy, I'm busy. We need to respect and honor the deadlines, and I will always give you plenty of time to do the assignments that you need to do. As we scroll down a little bit more, okay, so methods for assessing outcomes and weighing of grades. So here we've got the journal entries, the discussion board posts, discussion board comments due weekly. Every week you will have a discussion board question or questions. Usually it's multiple questions. It will ask you to look at an article. It will ask you to choose a couple of the 4 questions. It may ask you to answer the 4 questions that I have posted. I do not require you to respond to each other because I find that to be a little bit tedious, but I do expect you to respond to the discussion board on time and weekly. That on top of your journal entry will be one combined grade of 10%. So if you do the journal entry and not the discussion board, you get 0 points for the week. So it really takes doing both and doing what I ask of you within both capacities. Because this is an online course, I have to embed a little bit more work on your end to kind of demonstrate the seat time. So if we were actually in lecture, it's a little bit different, and the seat time is constituted a little bit differently, but I have to justify the work, and that's why you have this extra requirement here. And so please make sure you're doing both the journal entry and the discussion board. My instructions will be very clear of what I'm asking you each week, and like I said, reach out anytime if you're unsure and just need a little bit of help. I do want to bring up the counselor interview report. It is due September 3rd, so that's a quick turnaround time, and I know it's a super fast. Right now is probably the hardest time of school year for counselors, and so I'm letting you know right off the bat that you've got to get with your counselor and get this done. I'm not going to move the due date on this. The way the pacing of the course happens, it just makes most sense for it to come first. So that is due September 3rd, which is about 2 weeks from the start of class. It is 15% of your grade. What I'm asking you to do is to interview 2 counselors, one at the elementary level, one at the secondary, and ask them a series of questions. The questions are there for you, along with, I want you to kind of give me a reflection of what you've learned from that experience. I'm going to ask that you please do this face-to-face. I know it may not happen that way, and I understand if you've got to send this through an email, but you get so much more from this opportunity when you actually do the face-to-face. It really becomes a much richer experience, and so I'm really going to encourage you to do a face-to-face, but the reality may not be that may not fit in what's happening with your counselor, in your counselor's life right now or in your life, and so whatever it takes to get the assignment done on time. You have a community resource list due October 1st, so that'll give you kind of a few 3 to 4 more weeks before another assignment is due. However, I want to make sure you understand that assignment as well. You are to collect a list of local agencies in your community where you work, as far as agencies or communities that can support students and families. And so an example would be if you have a church that provides a food pantry, if you have another organization that provides like a clothes pantry or a clothes closet, just resources in the community that can help your families. You're going to put 5 on a list. I want you to visit one of those and actually meet with someone face to face and get an inside view of what it's like to work in that agency. There are some questions there and things for you to ponder, so you don't really go in the dark. But sometimes we think we know about the community resources in our area, and when we actually go and see them from the other side, you get a whole different perspective. And so that's what that assignment is asking for you. I will say that even though I'm going through the whole syllabus right now, I will readdress these as they come up through the semester. So don't worry if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to remember. I'm going to readdress them. If anything, I just really want you to focus on that first assignment because it comes up so quickly. November 5th will be the next assignment, which is again like a month later, and it's the year-long guidance plan. I'm not going to go into too much great detail there because it's not going to make much sense without first having the content knowledge. And so by November 5th, I promise you're going to know the content and this is going to make sense, and this assignment is going to be really easy. So don't worry yourself about it yet. We will get there. Counseling Program Introduction, November 19th. Again, you will have been in this course for a couple of months by then. And basically this assignment is kind of your introduction if you were to get a counseling job. So you're a brand new counselor this year or next year. what would that look like? What kind of pamphlet would you give to parents? What kind of website would you design? What kind of presentation might you give at a PTA meeting? Again, we will talk about that as it gets closer. Philosophy and self-assessment will be due December 3rd. December 3rd is the last day of our class as well, so those are big projects, and it's a signature assessment. I think one of the other ones, the year-long guidance plan is also a signature assessment, and so you have 2 signature assessments this semester, and those will need to be uploaded into your task stream, I think is what it's called. It's your online portfolio. It might be a different name. So we'll talk about that again as we get towards the end of the course. But this philosophy and self-assessment, you will understand that much more by that point. So let's, again, not use too much time to think about those. I just kind of wanted you to put them on your radar because time flies and you will find yourself, oh no, it's happening now, or this is due. And so I kind of just want to give you a little snippet of what's expected. We will have 2 exams. We'll have a midterm October 15th, and we will have a final exam on December 3rd. I will kind of talk to you about the format at that point, maybe a couple weeks before the exam, and so you will be well prepared. You will find my exams are a little different. It's not a lot of multiple choice, because I don't see too much value in that. It's a lot of scenario based, because part of being a school counselor is learning to think critically, and so what I'm doing is preparing you to deal with these situations in real life. And so my tests are a little different, but I think you're going to get more out of them. And again, we'll talk about that as we get a little bit closer. I'm going to scroll down to the schedule. So the actual where it says session date, topic, assignments, and due dates. I want to make sure that you are reading this correctly. So on the left-hand side, it's always going to say session date. So for instance, the first one is August 20th. So on August 20th, the topic is Introduction, which is this video, Syllabus, Course Objectives, Chapter 1, and Discuss Counselor Interview Assignment. So we've kind of already done most of these things in this video. In fact, I will cover all of that by the end of this video. The assignments that are due or that need to be completed are the discussion board and journal. Both have already been posted. And the due date on that discussion board and journal is August 27th. So by next Monday, the 27th, you need to have your information posted by 11:59. If it is late, you will get no credit. So just keep that in mind. If you look at the next line item, it says August 27th. The topic will be Chapter 2. Whatever Chapter 2 looks like, I'll have that posted. And then any supplementary materials that need to go with it. If there's no extra materials, then you won't see the materials there, but it'll all be clearly coded. Your assignment, again, would be complete assignments on discussion board and do your journal with the due date of September 3rd. On September 3rd, that is the Labor Day holiday. So I will have no lecture for you. There will be no PowerPoint lecture. There will be no video lecture of me. It is really a holiday in all sense, except you do have to complete your assignments and your discussion boards. So from the week before, those would be due September 3rd. Obviously, if you get them done earlier, then that's on you and you will kind of have a free day. Your counselor interview assignment is due that day as well. And I kind of did it on purpose so that you have that day off. Pardon my dogs. I'm at home and the doorbell rang, so hopefully someone will get that. But the assignment will be, that gives you kind of the whole day, because most of you, if not all of you, have the day off and are able to work throughout that day on this assignment and finish it up if you need to. So that kind of was my intent there. I try to really think like teachers and people in the classroom, and you will find that I've built some of that into this schedule. I am so sorry, the dogs continue to bark in the background, but I'm not going to restart this video, so we're going to keep moving. If you go down to September 24th, no, not the 24th, I'm going to look down at October 1st, and this is the fall break. Again, that week you will have no online lecture. You will have, but you will have some assignments that must be completed and that are due that day. So again, that's one of those days that it's no lecture. I'm not going to post anything new, but if you have assignments that are due, they need to be completed by that date. So that doesn't change. It's just a matter of you really don't have to read something from the text, or I'm not going to give you anything new. If we look at October 8th, that's when we will discuss the midterm design, and then the midterm will happen the following week on the 15th. And so again, I will probably post a video and let you know this is what it's going to look like. This is how you release the exam. I will give you all of that information, and will be available obviously by phone, by email that day if you're having any issues. I am going to say, please try to start the exam before 10 p.m. because it seems that students that kind of start at 10 or 11 always seem to have problems, and I can't guarantee that I'm going to be awake that late. Some days I present to hundreds of people and it wears me out and I just kind of pass out. So I try to be extra available those days, but please be considerate and know if you're going to have problems, I may not be able to help you if you're starting so late. Let me scroll down. So again, all the due dates are in there. It's laid out pretty simple. I'll discuss the final exam around November 26th, and then you'll have your final exam and course evaluations December 3rd. I think that has covered most of the syllabus. Again, you're going to want to read and reread the syllabus. Don't just rely on my videos, and text me, call me, email me as appropriate. I'm going to go back to the actual PowerPoint. And so these questions, so the next slide is issues impacting school counselors, and just things for you to think about. What do you think are the biggest issues impacting school counselors today? How can you advocate for the school counseling program? How does higher accountability standards impact school counselors at the primary and or secondary levels? What can you do now to better prepare yourself for a career in school counseling? These are the same questions that are in your discussion board. I kind of want to know where you stand on those things. As we get through the chapters, a lot of this will make more sense for you, and you'll start to get a lot more background knowledge. But I kind of just threw these in here to kind of gauge the audience and see what you know and where you're at. There really aren't any wrong answers, and so keep that in mind, that I'm not looking for any specific answer. I just want to know that you're thinking critically, because the role of a counselor is very fluid, and you've got to think on your toes, and sometimes you've got to come up with things at the last minute, and so I kind of want to gauge that and see where you're at. There is an article that's also embedded in the course material that I would like you to read and review. Highlight some key points, notate any surprises, any affirmations, any fears you might have. All the materials that I post can be subject to be on an exam. So I ask you to do these things so that you're prepared. Of course, obviously your exams are open book, open notes, and so if you've marked some of these things and I ask questions related to it, you're going to be able to answer it a lot quicker and not have to spend a lot of time reading. The exams are timed, so you definitely need to have kind of your materials together. And so I'm never going to ask you to do something just to be frivolous. Everything has a meaning, because I can't stand doing things that are just for a check in the box. So everything is interconnected. Everything's going to make you a better counselor. Okay, so I'm going to kind of just quickly talk to you about chapter 1. Keep in mind you are required to read the chapter, but the chapter is kind of about the history of counseling in schools and kind of how we came to be. I think it's really interesting that we're kind of a new phenomena. School counselors have not really been around more than about 20 years or so. In fact, elementary counselors were maybe about 30 years for secondary counselors, but elementary counselors weren't, those positions weren't created until the late 90s, and so they just really didn't see a role for the school counselor. We were kind of just that paper pusher, schedule changer, and really that was kind of the capacity that they used us historically in the beginning. But as you know, our identity has changed. We have become more and more important, especially as we're tied to accountability. And we will spend a chapter on accountability and what that looks like for counselors, and I'll go into more depth about it. But we are part of the accountability process. We weigh heavily on the rating system, and so you will find that I think what this is going to do for the profession is actually create more jobs, because districts are wanting to have perfect data, because accountability is huge. That now we're speaking the language of administrators and central office, and so counselors are finally kind of getting a seat at the table, and they're going to have to do some things so that we can be in compliance with the state. Again, accountability and counseling is a huge piece, and we're not going to touch that today, but in the next couple of chapters we definitely will, and it's really interesting. So if you don't know how A through F, how counselors weave into that, you're going to find out pretty soon. And so what we also find in this chapter is it talks about concerns from the school counseling preparation programs, that one of the biggest complaints that I always hear is that I was not prepared for this job. And in essence, you aren't. The curriculum that we follow in the school counseling program is one that's aligned with the ASCA model, and we'll learn a little bit about ASCA in a couple of slides. And that model is not really honored by most school districts. So your school counselor has sometimes become the testing coordinator, like I was, or we're managing discipline, we're setting up filing systems, we're doing lunchroom duty, we're doing hall duty, we're doing pickup and drop-off duty, we're doing substitute teaching when there's not enough teachers in the building. And so because our jobs are not always clearly defined, people have interpreted the role of school counseling differently, school by school. They also base the way they treat their counselor off their experience with counselors. So I had amazing working relationships with my principals, and they treated me like an equal. I mean, they gave me a seat at the table. They looked for my direction, but that was a level of respect that took time building. If the experience that administrator has had with their counselor is they're not helpful or they're not doing anything, again, their perception, then they just make all these assumptions, and we find ourselves in hall duty and lunch duty. The key to combat some of that is to be a little bit strategic. So when my administrator would ask me, could I do cafeteria duty, I'd be like, absolutely. Would it be okay if I set up my laptop and tables in the corner so that if kids had questions about their schedule or needed to see me and hadn't been able to see me, this would be a great time to set up a counselor corner and kind of do both things, monitor the cafeteria and address the needs of students. And my principal was like, absolutely, that's a great idea. And so I took something that was a duty, a non-counselor duty, and made it a counseling duty and made it another opportunity to see kids. And so as counselors and future counselors, we have to think like that. What can we do to satisfy both parties? And some of that, comes after years of experience, obviously, but never be afraid to speak up. People are always like, you told your principal that? And I'm like, yeah, I did. I mean, what is the worst thing that they can say? It's no. So in order to advocate for ourselves in our profession, we have to speak up. We have to stand up for ourselves. The nature of a school counselor is not one to really speak up. We kind of are the people that say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and do the job well. But we can't do our job well if we are clouded down with testing and lunch duties and all of these non-counselor tasks. And so that's your challenge as you become a school counselor, is to really find that balance and find these neat ways of being able to provide a better service to kids, but also maintaining that healthy relationship with your administration. And there's another chapter that we'll talk about that relationship a little bit more. We're just going to kind of basically touch on it tonight or today. I do want you to think about these non-counseling roles, though. I am sure you have seen counselors doing non-counseling roles. And so the questions here that I'm asking you to really think and ponder: what are some of those non-counseling roles that you've seen? What do counselors get blamed for? How do counselors get involved with discipline? And what can counselors do to meet administration in the middle? I've addressed some of that with my examples, but I just kind of want you to start thinking about, what does that look like? What are you going to do when you're in that position? What are the counselors at your school doing, if anything? And these questions are game for discussion boards later on. So just because I ask them without really having you post about it doesn't mean I'm not going to ask you to post for next week or the week after. So just make sure you kind of keep a running record of these thoughts. So when I do ask, I may ask them in your journal entries, that you can address them. I just want to talk about journal entries real quick. Try not to get too far ahead. I kind of made the mistake, or so I think I might have made a mistake by putting a 4 on there already, because I know some of you will be anxious and want to get them done. Try not to get too ahead, because sometimes I may adjust and change. I think after these 4, I'll try not to change anything until these 4 are done, but just in case I do, I'll always make an announcement so you know. But just stay along with me. You're going to get more from this class if you pace yourself instead of kind of trying to check through everything. And then the next slide I have there is, why must we teach first? This was something that really bothered me when I became a school counselor. Nobody had ever told me that I had to teach before I became a school counselor. I kind of found that out junior year of college, and was devastated, because then I had to add, extra couple of years to my plan in order to get my teacher certification. I wound up not doing that because it was extremely costly, and I wound up going to an alternative certification program. So all my alt-cert people, we can be great counselors too, and great teachers, even though we may not have had the training like a traditional program. I see value in both routes. I just financially could not handle the extra debt that was going to incur by going into the teacher ed program. So I went alt-cert and taught my 3 years. At that time, the law was that you had to teach 3. Now it's just 2, and became a school counselor immediately. But back to the question, why must we teach first? Well, I think in order to best support the teachers and understand what's going on with children, we've got to be in that role. Most of the things that I pull from when I'm working with teachers, when I'm working with other counselors, are my experiences in the classroom. And so please know that there is so much value in what you're doing right now. Counseling will be so much easier for you if you are already embedding some of the principles in your classes. So good organization, classroom management, embedding character education, just all of those good materials is going to make you a better counselor. Great teachers make great counselors. And I mean, there's no other way to say it. Great teachers make great counselors. And so you will transition to the role quite easily. It is extremely challenging though, and the burden that you carry for kids can be great and kind of take you down sometimes. And so we'll talk a little bit about the mindfulness and how we cope and counselor self-care in other chapters, but it's important for us to teach first. I would not be the counselor I am today if I had not had the experience from being a teacher. So just a few thoughts on that in case you ever wondered why do we have to do that. I'm going to end this segment with the last slide, which is the ASCA national model. We're going to go into ASCA a lot more in Chapter 2, but I do want to start getting some vocabulary out there for you. If there's only one thing that you remember and learn from this course, I need you to learn the 4 components. The 4 components is the framework for the school counseling comprehensive model. It is guidance curriculum, individual planning, responsive services, and systems support. You will see those 4 words for the rest of your program. I'm not sure if this is your first class, if you're in the middle or towards the end. Those in the middle or in, absolutely know those 4 words, those 4 terms, are extremely important. So again, guidance curriculum, individual planning, responsive services, and systems support. I'm going to give you a brief rundown on what those 4 are, and then we will continue to talk about them pretty much in every chapter, pretty much in everything that we do. So guidance curriculum is exactly what it sounds like. It's providing guidance. Now, those of us who are high school teachers or middle school, guidance is so hard to accomplish because of the logistics and the time and the limited resources. But it is required by law that we address certain guidance principles. So suicide awareness would be one, bullying and healthy relationships, also called healthy relationships and dating violence. So those are critical. I do want you to know that. First, I want everyone to know that. Those are the 3 guidance lessons that are required by the state, by law. It's in legislation. It's for secondary. So elementary, this isn't you. This is secondary, middle school and high school. Teen dating violence, healthy relationships, you see it both ways. It means the same thing. Bullying and suicide prevention. Guidance curriculum can be any character development lesson. If you're learning about respect, if you're doing Red Ribbon Week, those types of things are all encompassed under guidance curriculum. Individual planning is when we work with students one-on-one. So as a teacher, you have a student that's struggling, maybe they're falling asleep in class every day, and you email the counselor and you're like, hey, can you kind of see what's going on? We meet with that student and we find out that they're the babysitter at night because mom has to work. Okay, so that's an individual planning. That's kind of a one-on-one. We're working to resolve your issues and support you, whether it's social, emotionally, or academically. Responsive services is anything where a student is in immediate crisis. So if that student is crying, if that student is throwing a fit, if that student is aggressive and needs support, it's responsive services. If a student has been cutting or made a suicide outcry, that is responsive services. It's everything that's kind of at that crisis level with students. If that student is crying and upset because her boyfriend of 3 days just broke up with her, that's responsive services. The student has to be in distress and visibly upset or making a suicide outcry in order for it to be responsive services. So we will talk more about that. System support is anything that's like paperwork based that doesn't involve working with the student directly. Okay, so if you are working on 504 paperwork or special ed paperwork, even though you're working on this for a student, the actual work of doing the paperwork by yourself is system support. If a teacher asks you to help her with some mindfulness strategies to help their students calm down in class, that's system support. Okay, it's anything that's not directly working with the student. As soon as we are directly working with the student, it is one of the other components. System support, you are never working directly with a student. You may be working for a student, for the community, for parents, for staff, but you're not working directly with students in that. We'll talk a lot more about that, but I wanted to make sure you at least started to hear this terminology, and we'll talk about other scenarios where these are applicable. You'll also read several scenarios in your textbook as well. And so here is just a little bit more of the organizational framework of K-12 curriculum and some resources. We will get into a lot more information by week 2 and week 3 and throughout the semester. But I'm so glad that you are on this journey with me. I'm extremely excited to walk this path with you, and please reach out for anything. I pray that you have a fantastic semester with me, and just know you're in the right place, and that God will lead our path, and we will have a fantastic semester. So take care, and I will be looking for my next video next week or so. Bye.